Okay. I know that there are some meetings on campus still, so I know some people will be arriving late or they'll just watch the taped version. But I just wanted to start by saying thank you to the 7 of you who are here. I think this will be a lot more interesting and more helpful by being here in person. I'm so excited. I can't believe, this time next week we'll actually be winding things up for the most part, so it goes so fast. Since Fred was not on the phone for our first class meeting, I wanted to just ask if you all could go around quickly and introduce yourselves and maybe say your name, your degree area, and if there's something that you just want to say about yourself, that would be great. And then after everybody here goes, Fred, we'll ask you to introduce yourself, and then we'll move forward.
Okay, perfect.
Great. You want to start?
Yeah. Hi, Fred. My name is Kate Bueller. I'm studying service leadership and management. And I'm from Pennsylvania. And what else should I say?
That is perfect.
That's it.
And actually, noting the state that you're from, I'm just double checking again. As we start talking about Capitol Hill visits. So thanks, Kate. Thanks for being here.
I'm Rose. I am a SLM major.
What's your resident?
Yeah. My license is from Rhode Island. Let's go with that.
Perfect. Thank you, Rose.
Hey Fred, I'm Preston. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm in the Intercultural Service Leadership Management degree with specializations in M&E and Policy Analysis and Advocacy.
Hey.
Hey Fred, I'm Jessie. I'm in the Peace Building and Conflict Transformation Program. I'm from Illinois, and I'm really into policy advocacy for immigration, so that's why I'm going.
Hi Fred, I'm Mary Aurora. I'm an international education major, and I am from Kentucky.
Hi Fred, my name is Miranda. I am in the Service Leadership and Management concentration, and I am from New York.
Great. And I see 2 more people walking up the pathway. Here come Noah and Stefan. So let's just wait a moment for them so they can hear you introduce yourself, Fred.
All right.
Hi, everybody. Come on in, take a seat. And Fred is on the phone, and he's about to introduce himself. When he's done, I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves. And great, thank you. Okay, Fred, introduce yourself. Go for it.
All right. So my name is Fred, and I am a professional education major. Finishing my first year at S.I.T. in Criticism. I'm originally from France, but I've lived internationally for the past 15 years, and I'm now based in Barcelona, Spain.
Great. And I misstated Fred's citizenship earlier. Fred, you're a citizen of Canada.
France and Canada, yeah.
Fred. And it brings up, when we start to ask where are you from, of course, at S.I.T. we know that is like the most complicated of all questions. So we start to get into that a little bit here as well. You want to introduce yourself, Stefan?
Or already has.
Well, so Fred can, yeah.
So my name is Stefan. I'm from St. Louis. I'm a conflict transformation major. Conflict transformation and peace building, excuse me. My undergrad was in law, pre-law, and Illinois University. And is there anything else that you would like me to
That's
say?
perfect. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Great.
Sawa? Hello? Fred?
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. All right. I'm looking forward to speaking a little bit of French. We have 2 people who can speak a little French, so we're going to have a little Francophone event. I'm Noah. I'm from upstate New York. My background's in development economics. I study peace building and conflict transformation here. And that's about it.
Great.
Cool. Hello.
Thanks. And we've got everybody here except for Josephine Fleming, who is based in Atlanta and has since clarified she's a registered voter of Wyoming and looks forward to lobbying the Wyoming delegation next week. So not Georgia. Yeah. So thank you again. What I want to do is start by talking about some of the logistics, just to get that out of the way, and then we're going to start our dive into talking and learning about advocacy with some foundational material. As I said last time, for those in the room, if you have a question at any time, just wave your hand or stare at me. Fred, if you have a question at any time, just interrupt, because we can't see you waving your hand. So, and folks in the room should know that Fred and I know each other quite well because I'm his advisor as part of the low residency program and taught the class that he took online in the fall as well. So we've had many conversations together as well. And I know everybody will benefit from his being in the class and vice versa. When we were waiting to get started, and at the beginning I noted, I just can't believe I'll be on the road in 48 hours, and I'm so excited. I have the program is almost all confirmed, and I have an update for you, so I look forward to sharing that. I want to just first to ask about really basic logistics. Is everybody okay with transportation? You know how you're getting to Washington, and that's all set? I see a hand going like this. Do you have a question for the group, or do you want to talk with me afterwards, or should I just ignore it and move on?
We could probably talk with people and ironing some things out.
Okay. I will assume it all works out. If you need me, then let me know. Great. Housing, we have, I know 3 people I've been emailing with about housing for Thursday night. And
4, please.
Oh, okay.
Again, I'm struggling getting Thursday night covers.
Okay. Why don't we talk about that afterwards? We can, if you can hang around for a few minutes, because we've got some options. Other than that, is everybody okay with housing?
I know there's another SIT student who's going to be in DC who's not part of the class, but she also, this is a topic for you guys, she was looking for someone to stay with, I believe, just the night of the 28th and the 29th and the 29th and the 30th.
Yeah, she's gonna that's when it's really hard to get out. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I just meant if someone's staying with a friend who's next to room and they want.
Yeah, there's people leaving.
So that's why the hotel situation is so
That's exactly. So we are in the middle of cherry blossom season, which is a blessing and a curse. The curse is small. It just means there's going to be a ton of people in the city and traffic will be horrible and the metro will be fuller than usual. But the blessing is that if you have not seen the cherry blossoms, I describe it as like when you walk up to the edge of the Grand Canyon and you think you know what a hole in the ground looks like, and then you go, oh my. When you stand with these amazing cherry blossoms in full bloom, it is a breathtaking sight and a Washington treat. And normally they don't open until April 9th to 12th. This year being such a bizarre weather year, they are following our schedule perfectly. So I sent 2 links to information. If you are in the city, this weekend is supposed to be peak weekend. But we've got, you'll see on the schedule, there are a couple of times where there will be enough time during the week as well to go visit them. I think probably the sooner the better once you get to DC, because they're supposed to be peaking right about Friday or Saturday. So it's exciting. And any questions about that? Any questions about tourism things? Museums, neighborhoods. I lived in the DC area for about 17 years and am a pretty good source for information. And your DC colleagues on Facebook are going to be the best source of information. And word is out that we are coming. I'll talk more about the alumni gathering in a bit. So we've got lots of resources. So.
I have a question. Where is the cherry blossom? Where do you go to see them? Is it the mall?
No, in fact, the cherry blossoms are around the tidal basin near the Jefferson Memorial.
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody know how they got there?
Japan.
Oh, yeah.
Good, but actually, no way. No.
From Japan. I don't know the whole story, but they were given it as a gift from the Japanese emperor.
Exactly. So it's international diplomacy in an arborist way. They were a gift from the country of Japan, and they are breathtaking because they surround a body of water as well. And they're all over the city, but that's the central point. One of the links that I sent in an email I sent last night has the metro information about the closest metro stations. If it's not raining, your best bet is to get off a station before and just walk more. It's really crowded. So, but it's totally worth it. So totally worth it. Okay. So hotel we'll talk about. Transportation, everybody's okay. I wanted to introduce the Moodle site and just show you very quickly. And Fred, you should have access to the Moodle site as well. It has been open just for a day or two now. The syllabus and calendar, I'm still waiting to confirm one final appointment. Both of those will be posted tomorrow by the end of the day. I'll bring hard copies of the syllabus with me, so you don't need to print it out, just to let you know. And I have hard copies of the calendar with you. And Fred, I sent that earlier today by email to you as well.
Good.
Great. We've got some information about the assignments and just hopefully helpful information about making Capitol Hill appointments. What I wanted to do is point out that there are 4 sections to the core of the Moodle site. Readings and resources about advocacy. The one reading that I ask that you absolutely complete by Monday morning, if nothing else, is 11 Steps for Developing a Policy Advocacy Campaign. As I mentioned in our first class, the model that is presented there is the model that becomes the core for our study of policy advocacy. And it becomes the core for one of your assignments, actually for 2 of your assignments, your presentation and your paper as well. All of the other, I suspect, as soon as you sit down and start going through it, an hour and a half is going to pass and it'll feel like 5 minutes. It's really interesting stuff. I've tried to put up what I think will make your lives easier for getting around Washington. There's a link to the metro up above. There's a link to a map of the Capitol complex as well. Some basic information about advocacy. Then the next block are resources about immigration in particular. These are links to the websites for the organizations that we're going to be visiting. They also are embedded in the syllabus that I'll be giving out on Monday, but I just wanted to make it easy for you to be able to follow, to find them. Okay. The last 2 blocks of information are additional readings and resources about advocacy and additional resources about immigration. These might be akin to recommended. Again, just providing as much information and resource for you so that you have it when you do your own advocacy. It's not just about the class, but about advocacy and learning about immigration in general. The links were verified most recently as of Tuesday, so they should be up to date and working. If you find any that change between Tuesday and when you look, just let me know and we'll get it updated for you. So let me just ask if there are any questions about the Moodle site. Fred, so far so good?
Yeah.
Great, and now Jamie is behind the video camera, and I just want to say hi to Josephine, because I know you'll be watching the video soon, Josephine. So we look forward to seeing you on Monday as well. Great. Okay. Next is what I think is the best part, which is the actual program. take a calendar. And Fred, we're looking at the calendar of meetings that I sent earlier.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, Fred, can you repeat that? It was hard to hear you.
Sorry, that the email was sent earlier?
Yes, and it was the attachment titled calendar. Was there an extra one? Did somebody have an extra? I thought I printed more. No? Okay. Noah, can I share with you? I know it more or less by heart. But the most important thing to know is that we're going to meet at the DC Center at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, because as long as you get there, then I'll have a syllabus with all of the details for you about the rest of the program. The DC Center is the 11th floor of the office where all of the World Learning programs are based in Washington, D.C. The closest metro stations are Farragut North and either Farragut West or McPherson Square, depending which direction you're coming from. Right now, it's, of course, so easy with Google Maps. If you put the address in, directions will come up from wherever you are. I will be on email, and I will have my phone with me constantly as of Saturday. So any questions that you guys have, feel free to call me or to email me, and I'll respond, as soon as I can. And you should have my cell phone number, and if not, I will email it out to everybody one more time as well. So it will be on the syllabus that will be posted to the Moodle site by the end of the day tomorrow. So I don't want anybody to get lost. For folks who are not familiar with Washington, D.C., when you're looking at addresses, the one thing to pay attention to is the designation about which quadrant of the city we're looking at. Fred, have you been to D.C. before?
Once a year, for just a couple of days.
Okay. So,
excuse me, sorry, I'm trying to find it. There's a really helpful video on this that's funny and entertaining, but explains the quadrants really well. If I find it, I'll email
send it to me and I'll send it out to everybody. Great. So does anybody, Fred, I've drawn a diamond on the chalkboard and a line going up and down, a line across. And there's a dot at the intersection of the lines. Does anybody want to guess what the dot is? It's not just Capitol Hill, it is... No, not the mall. You have to...
The White House?
Not the White House.
Congress.
I'm so glad I asked. It's Congress. It's the Capitol. And that's so significant because that is so symbolic of the people's building, the Capitol being the center of Washington, D.C. It's not the White House. It's not the president who has all of the power. The power is at the Capitol. Capitol Hill is the neighborhood. So we draw a kind of a gray, smoky area around the building. But the building itself resides in all four quadrants of Washington, D.C. So if you're looking at an address that you're not familiar with, you just want to make sure that you're, pardon me, that you note which quadrant of the city the building that you're going to is located in. Most of our appointments will be in Northwest Washington, D.C. It's where most nonprofit organizations are based, a lot of the lobbying organizations. It's actually the largest geographically, but we will also be in Northeast and Southeast D.C., and the tidal basin is in Southwest D.C. And then these are the flowers, all the cherry blossoms around. So I've just drawn a picture of the tidal basin and cherry blossoms, Fred. And it's quite disgusting, so you're glad you can't see it. But that gives you a layout of the land. The DC Center, the address is 1015 15th Street Northwest. So we'll be starting Monday morning in the northwest quadrant of the city. The syllabus that you get will have step-by-step instructions on getting from one appointment to the next. So of course we'll all have our phones, we'll have our GPS, but just in case your battery runs out, you'll always be able to get to our next appointment as long as you have that syllabus with you. So you'll see that when you look it up. Really fast, I just want to tell you what the week is all about and what we're going to be doing, because I'm really excited. Monday morning, we will be reviewing the program in much more detail, and we'll be going into a discussion of advocacy. We'll be reviewing that 11-step model that I pointed out earlier. We'll be dividing up the steps so that you know which step you'll be responsible for presenting about on Friday morning. And we're going to kind of just talk issues, but really focusing on the process. Monday afternoon is an introduction to the issue of immigration. At the American Immigration Council, we'll be meeting with one of their research analysts, a woman who has met with S.I.T. students at least 8 or 9 times now, Michelle Loslin. She is brilliant about the issue of immigration. She started her career at the National Council of La Raza. She studied in Latin America, is fluent in Spanish. She moved from La Raza to the American Immigration Council. She left about 2 years ago and was doing research for the Pew Research Program, and just about 10 days ago returned to the American Immigration Council. I'm thrilled because when she was at Pew, she wasn't allowed to meet with us. They really protect their researchers so that they are separate from everybody who is involved in what they're studying. But now that she's back at the council, one of her jobs is meeting with other people who are interested in immigration. And you'll see she'll provide a history of immigration policy, an overview of the players. You're going to laugh when you hear her talk because you'll think about what I'm about to say. She speaks a mile a minute. I'm speaking slowly compared to, she has so much information in her brain, and if that were the only appointment that happened all week, you'd be glad that you went to DC. I'm thrilled. Every year I try and identify a new resource. I don't want to do the same thing over and over and over again. This year the new resource is the Center for Community Change. I also try and make sure there's at least one appointment that speaks directly to the interests of everybody in our class and all of the different degree areas. This appointment should be of interest to everybody, but is going to be of special interest to our SLMers and those of you who are interested in grassroots-based advocacy and working for social change. They have a staff person who is specifically focused on immigration policy and will be meeting with their Director of Legislative Affairs and their Director of Immigration Policy. So it's the perfect combination of content, immigration, and process, the advocacy part. The center is overall looking at how to help marginalized groups work for change to be fully accepted members of society. And I think they are going to be really interesting for all of us to learn about. On Tuesday morning, we'll be going up to Capitol Hill as a group. We'll meet with the communications director of Congressman Luis Gutierrez. Congressman Gutierrez is one of the leading proponents of immigration reform on Capitol Hill, and his communications director, Doug Rivlin, is one of the leading policy analysts in Washington, D.C. He was with the National Immigration Forum for many, many years before Gutierrez stole him and brought him onto Capitol Hill. I have to note, all of the people we're meeting with, they all know each other, and they all laugh when I share the program. They're like, oh, good, you got Michelle this year. Oh, great, you're meeting with Doug. So it's really fun because I feel like I'm entering their inner world in a way. Doug also, he is brilliant about immigration policy. He is brilliant about the workings of Capitol Hill. And because we're going when Congress is on recess, the congressman won't be in the office. He'll have time to talk with us. He's a great insider into how Capitol Hill really works. So in the email I sent last night, I sent a link to a PBS film that was released in the fall of 2015 called Immigration Battle. This was, it's about a 2-hour film, and probably 80% of it focuses on the work of Congressman Gutierrez, and Doug Rivlin is constantly by his side. I have to note, it's not the most engrossing movie ever. If you are doing the readings, have it playing in the background, and the visuals are people on Capitol Hill for 2 weeks. There are meetings with advocacy groups. There are visuals of marches and protests on the Hill, but tons of walking through the halls of the Capitol building as well. It will provide a really good overview. Even if you just watch the first half an hour or so, it will provide a really good interview. And Doug is going to ask if you watched it, so it will be really great if you can say, oh yeah, and I have a question about. So it's not just complimenting him by having watched it, but it's using it as the basis for conversation. So I wanted to point that out. 3 blocks away, 3 really long blocks, we'll be meeting with Director of Domestic Policy for the Friends Committee on National Legislation. This was last year's new appointment, and the person who we're meeting with was an intern last year, and she's now a full-time staffer. You'll find that many of the people we're meeting with are young professionals. Washington lives off of the energy of young professionals, and I hope you will ask them about, and I've asked them to talk about their career paths, because I want you to learn how others have gotten involved in advocacy and in the policy-making process, because they are where you all will be in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, etc. Is anybody familiar with the Friends Committee, FCNL? As background, they are the lobbying group for the Quakers. So almost every religion in the United States has a lobby group based in Washington, D.C. I'll have to think of names now. But every faith group has one. They are looking at policy issues that are of importance to Quakers. For those of you who are not familiar with the Quaker religion, also known as the Religious Society of Friends, and thus the word friends in the title here. It's a very politically and socially progressive group for the most part, with values that are very closely aligned with those of S.I.T. And in all transparency, I want to note that while I myself am Jewish, my husband is Quaker, and I've been attending a Quaker meeting for 18 years now. And I'm closely involved with the Quaker meeting in the Brattleboro area. It's actually based up in Putney. You'll see their building is a green building, so for those of you interested in environment and sustainability, it's an amazing physical representation of how to be green in Washington, D.C. Their issues are all about social justice. Many of the organizations that we're visiting have really vibrant internship programs as well. And I just wanted to point out that both the Center for Community Change and Friends Committee have openings for internships now and over the next coming months as well. So if any of this resonates with you, I know that you're thinking about that if you're in the on-campus program.
You said Friends Committee and who else?
And the Center for Community Change that we're meeting with. So look at their websites, and all of the information is there. I did a little bit of pre-investigation. Tuesday afternoon, we'll meet with the Federation for American Immigration Reform. They are what most SITers would consider the anti-immigrant lobby group. They will say they are pro-immigrant, but they are pro-legal immigrant. And It is so important for us to hear from the people who we are arguing against directly. Interestingly, the person who we're meeting with, his title officially is spokesperson. He's been a senior policy analyst with them for many, many years. He was a diplomat with the State Department for years before that. He has lived abroad. He's fluent in Spanish. His wife might be Latin American as well. So if you make assumptions about people who think differently than you, he makes you stop and say, wait a minute, he had the same professional upbringing that I did, exchange student, lived in Latin America, dating or married to people from other cultures. His politics are so different from my politics. How did that happen? And it's fun to argue and engage. He knows that most S.I.T. students have a very different political perspective than he does, and he also welcomes that engagement. So afterwards, really excited, we have a visit scheduled with National Public Radio. And I want to say it's a visit because it is a special tour just for the 11 of us. They are trying to arrange a meeting with one of their policy analysts for us as well. Even if that doesn't happen, their tour guides are all able to talk about what I want us to engage about, the role of the media in a democratic society, covering policy issues from a nonpartisan perspective. Where does funding for a group called National Public Radio come from? They'll be able to talk about all of that. And their building also is a new 2-year-old green building. Tuesday is Capitol Hill Day. All of the meetings are up on Capitol Hill. So I'm really excited about that. I put the group number in the syllabus. God forbid I get hit by a bus on Tuesday. You guys go to National Public Radio. You've got the group number in the syllabus so you can still get the tour. I don't want it to be about that you need me to be there. So it's one of my professional assumptions. What happens if I get hit by a bus? So you guys can go on. Okay. Wednesday morning is our executive branch day. Who is being lobbied? Who is implementing the policies that we are studying about? The first appointment is still not confirmed, but hopefully will be with a representative from the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration. This will be of special interest to anybody, to our SD and social change SLM students. But part of the field of development is working with refugees, and that's specifically what we're looking at, refugees and migration around the world. I wasn't surprised it's taking a little bit longer to confirm this meeting because they are so busy right now, of course, with what's going on around the world, but I happened to bump into Don Steinberg this morning and he asked how things were going, and I advocated because he used to work in that bureau, and sure enough, he gave me the name of somebody and said, okay, tell them that I sent you and I'll give her a call myself. So we'll see if it's all done. Haha, that's on me. Oh yeah, he was an ambassador. Yeah. Pardon?
20 years in the Foreign Service?
29.
Wow.
29 years with the State Department, I should say, and an ambassador to Angola. So he's going to meet with us on Monday morning as well. So he says he has 5 or 10 minutes. We'll probably be there for half an hour because he never leaves on time. So he's excited. After the State Department, our second meeting will be at the S.I.T. DC Center because it's much easier for us to get in there than to get into the Department of Homeland Security. But we will be meeting with a representative of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Philip Villeneuve met with us last year. Very insightful, very compassionate, very smart. He is trained as a lawyer and wanted to help the immigration process. So it will be a different perspective and one that you'll find very interesting, I'm sure.
Do you, on the syllabus, is that these people's names?
Yes, names, titles, emails, phone numbers, so you can follow up and contact them directly afterwards. I encourage you to look up their bios because they're all on the web, and if they're not listed under their organization, look at LinkedIn. That's actually how I connected with Philip when I was looking for somebody in Homeland Security and they weren't returning my phone calls last year, go figure. I actually used LinkedIn, and we were second connection friends through an S.I.T. alum who used to work in the White House. And I just emailed him on LinkedIn, and he connected, and is, turning into a Washington bud. So cool. Yeah. Wednesday afternoon is going to be of special interest to our international education majors. We've got a panel looking at advocacy regarding international student immigration issues. And I want to point out that it is still going to be of great interest for everybody because the people who we're meeting with are registered lobbyists. It's all about the advocacy. But if you say we're looking at immigration, that can be defined in so many ways. So you can see each appointment is looking at a different part of the immigration puzzle. We'll be meeting at the NAFSA building, and again meeting with the people who represent the field of international education up on the Hill. Wednesday evening, we'll go back to the S.I.T. DC Center. Everybody is invited to come. There's going to be an alumni gathering from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock that evening. It's primarily for alums, but we all, of course, are invited. There might be a part of the program where alums are giving an update about a recent survey that they participated in or happenings here on campus. Tom Navin, who is the director of development for World Learning, is coming to DC just for this. There will be representatives from the DC Center as well. There will be some prospective students also, and it'll just be a great chance to A, chill, B, network, C, relax, and D, have a drink and some snacks that somebody else is paying for.
Tom taught a couple of the fundraising and grant classes, so some of us met him in that.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
So great. So again, that's from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. It's not required, but I think will be fun for all of us to be there. So Thursday morning is the time that's set aside for you and your individual Capitol Hill appointments. And I'll come back and talk about that a bit more in a moment. But I wanted to let you know that Thursday afternoon, we'll gather starting at 2 o'clock at the DC Center, specifically to process what happened in those appointments. So you've got from whatever time in the morning, your final appointment theoretically could start at 1 o'clock. You would need to leave Capitol Hill by 1:30 if you're taking the metro to get to class on time. I wanted to give you enough space to try and make appointments with both senators and your member of Congress, so that way you can space out 3 appointments on Capitol Hill and have enough time for lunch and have enough time to get back to the DC Center.
We
So,
leave by 1:30.
if you leave the Hill by 1:30, it'll be a little bit tight, but you'll still make it. You can always, if you're especially with somebody, grab a taxi. You'll absolutely make it on time. It really depends where that last appointment is, but it'll be close enough. So.
When did you recommend we start contacting them?
Now is the perfect time to start contacting them, and I'm going to talk about that more in a moment because it's a bigger thing. So.
You said Congress is not in session, so we'd be meeting with the staffers.
Unless your member of Congress or senator happens to be in the office because they're doing some special work, or then most likely the member of Congress will not be there. It's the ideal time for advocacy to happen because it means that the staffers have time to meet with us. If Congress is in session, very frequently you get a 3-minute handshake and a photo op with your member of Congress, and then everybody is called into a meeting or a vote, and it's not as gratifying. The fact that the boss isn't there means that the staff, who really know most of the knowledge about the issues, they'll have more time to talk with us. So. And again, I'm going to go through all of this in much more detail on Monday morning, but I'm assuming that you're wondering, what's this week going to hold? So I just wanted to walk through it. So. Friday is our Dress Comfortably Day. It will be just us. We'll meet at the DC Center at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we'll go until about 12:30, just wrapping up, synthesizing, processing everything that we've learned about all week. The most interesting part of that will be your presentations regarding the steps of the advocacy process. And again, we'll talk more about that on Monday morning too. We'll finish at 12:30 on Friday so that anybody who is traveling anyplace else has ample time on Friday. And your reflection paper will be due 10 days later so that you have time to let everything settle, to get back, to have 2 days of spring break if you want before you come back to campus. So that's the schedule. Let me ask if anybody has any questions about that. Let's start, Fred, with you. Any questions about the schedule?
No, I think it's quite clear.
Thank you. Anybody who's in the room have any questions?
As far as meeting with people outside of this, like people we're networking with already, I mean, this is an amazing opportunity. When will these end each day? So we can kind of have a rough estimate about how we can contact these people for lunch meetings or dinner meetings or whatever.
Adam, can you do me a favor? On my desk is a printout of the syllabus for the course, and if you can bring that in, I can tell you each day what time we end, so that you can...
It's on the syllabus?
It will be on the syllabus,
Oh,
yeah.
it will be.
Yeah, but I can tell you now very quickly.
Well, on the flip note of that, on Monday and Friday you said we start at 9. How about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Right. It'll be on the syllabus. So basically we are going from 9 to 5 every day. It is full, it is packed. I am giving you the most that I can possibly give. So you learn the most you can possibly learn.
What is our actual downtime going to look like after we get home around 5 or to our places? Is there going to be like assignments that we have to fill out for the next day or do, or are we actually just going to have time to like kind of recoup ourselves?
The only assignments you would have would be to, if you haven't already, review the websites for the organizations we're visiting the next day. The most embarrassing thing is when somebody asks a question that's on an organization's homepage, for example, so that I ask that you just take a little bit of time and look at the websites, read the bios for the people that we're meeting with. Other than that, there is no assignment, there's no additional reading. I know you want to enjoy the city and have a little bit of a break as well. So.
Other homework.
Yeah.
Other homework? No!
Oh, yeah.
I have to figure out.
Have so much
That's
to do.
terrible.
We're
No,
doing
it's
so
terrible.
much
You on
work.
Monday. I have to figure it
Oh,
out.
that's not fair.
I know.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's okay. That's my opinion. Okay, on Monday we'll meet at 9 o'clock and we go until 5 o'clock. And frankly, our last appointment on Monday, the Center for Community Change, is not near a metro station, so we're going to need to jump in a couple of taxis together to get out there, and probably take a couple of taxis back to get back into the major part of the city. So you really shouldn't plan for anything on Monday before 6 o'clock p.m. by the time we...
What part of town is it?
The U Street corridor. So
if we're staying near there, we can just go from there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It'll be convenient. Tuesday, we are meeting on Capitol Hill at 9 o'clock, which means if you're staying in the U Street corridor or Northwest like I am, you really want to be on the metro by 7:45 at the very latest. Once you get to Capitol Hill, it's a long walk to the building. We want to get into the building. It takes time to go through security, coats off, everything through x-ray machines, coats on, and then it's another 10-mile walk through the halls of the building to find the actual office. So it just takes time. So on Tuesday, our tour visit with NPR ends officially at 4:30. I suggest that you don't make any arrangements for something, again, much before 5:30 or 6. With any luck, they might, this has happened before, I cannot guarantee it, but I have been on tours where they took us by so we could watch All Things Considered being broadcast. And the last thing you want to do is have a commitment with somebody else and have to leave and not see that. If you are the NPR junkie that I am, it's really fun to see, you know.
If I can find David Green.
Yeah.
And they're near Gallaudet, right?
As far as the city is concerned, yes, it's a ways away, but it's in the same basic, it's northeast, you know, and right Capitol Hill. So. Wednesday, I'm hoping that our meeting at the State Department will start at 9:30. And what this means is that we need to be at that building at 9 o'clock. So you need to, depending where you're staying, again, give yourself adequate time. The metro station is Foggy Bottom, which is on the orange and blue line. But again, it's a 7 or 8 block walk from Foggy Bottom to the State Department.
I think it might be more beneficial for me to tag along with somebody else and go to talk to one of the government officials with one of you.
Fred, I completely agree for reasons that we talked about previously. An embassy is not about advocacy as being a target of advocacy, because their job is to represent the policy that exists for the most part. Because the course is focused on advocacy at the U.S. national level, I think you'll find it more gratifying in terms of your own learning if you connect with one or more of your classmates and approach it that way. You also can do both, because there's enough time on Thursday morning. If you want to try and meet with a policy expert at the embassy, go ahead and do that. And there's going to be a lot of Thursday morning's schedule gets to be a little bit crazy as you join with each other, so that all of you can go to as many appointments as possible. Is it okay if I keep talking about Thursday a little bit now?
That's right.
Okay, great. Just in terms of tools, I want to show you on the Moodle site. Oh, I shouldn't have left it. Okay. At the top of the Moodle site, under Assignments, is a block Meeting with Your Government Official. There is a link. Just click on Find Your Senators, and all of the senators come up with their contact information. There's a link for your representatives or congressmen as well. The same thing. And Fred, there is a link for embassies also there if you do want to pursue that.
For that.
The sample appointment request letter gives you a starting point if you want to send an email. And, oh, here we go. One moment. Okay. Basically, it's a very basic overview of who you are, why you're in Washington, what you're interested in talking about, and then offering your availability. Friends, what I suggest is calling your 2 senators' offices and your member of Congress this afternoon or tomorrow and telling them that you're free on Thursday morning. Most likely, you'll leave a message. Call back tomorrow or Monday, you'll leave a message. Leave your email or your cell phone number, and by Wednesday afternoon, hopefully all of you will have 2 or 3 appointments confirmed. It is not too late at all. Now is the perfect time to start this. And as we mentioned earlier, many offices in Washington won't commit until the day before, but you need to put, what they do, they don't tell you this, what they do is pencil you in, and unless there's an emergency, you'll have the appointment. But they'll wait until Tuesday or Wednesday to confirm it. I suggest starting with the phone call. Very often you'll get a scheduler on the phone, and they'll say, oh, send me an email. And then you can just cut and paste this text, change it to reflect your own voice, include your own information, and then send that email to them. So, if you each try to contact both senators and your member of Congress, between the 9 citizens in the group, we will have enough appointments confirmed for Thursday so that if yours all don't come through, you can also tag along with somebody else. It's really important to go to more than one because 1 might be fabulous or horrible, 2 gives you comparison, and 3 tells you what your congressional delegation is all about. So, for better or worse. Now, if I remember correctly, I think we have, so we have 2 people who are from New York, Noah and Miranda. So you guys should coordinate so that one of you can call one senator, one of you can call one senator, and unless you're in the same congressional district, then you can each contact your own congressman. Okay? Are you in the same congressional district? I don't think so. And then we have other states, Wyoming, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Stefan, Missouri? Illinois as well. So great, so we've got 2 people from Illinois, Jesse and Stefan. So you can do the same thing. One of you contact one senator, one of you contact the other senator, and then figure out if you're in the same congressional district or not.
We're not.
Okay.
I'm St. Louis, she's Chicago.
Okay. You're St. Louis, Illinois.
Well, East St. Louis is in Illinois, St. Louis is in Missouri,
Got
and
it.
the St. Louis borders Illinois. So just like Kansas City borders Kansas and Missouri, it's the same thing, both the cities border.
Thank you for the clarification. I'm such an East Coast girl.
That's why they're on opposite sides of the state. They both border.
The others got it. Okay, great. Preston, you're on your own for Georgia.
You let me down.
Josephine, we thought you were Georgia because that's where you're living now. In fact, we have 2 people. Josephine's husband is a student at SCAD, and somebody is a graduate of SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. My niece went to SCAD as well. So we've got a Savannah connection going on as well. But in terms of voting, Jesse, Preston, Georgia, Josephine, Wyoming, Rose, we spoke earlier, and I think that's everybody. Kentucky. And we've talked, and you've got good work cut out for you, Mary Aurora.
Yes. So I'm actually born in Kentucky. My family's from Kentucky, but I'm a registered voter in Georgia. It'd be better to do Georgia.
Absolutely. It is where you are registered to vote. That is the place where you have the power to, if not change somebody's mind, let them know that not all of their constituents think the way they do. And that's really important. So
we'll need someone to go with. Excuse me. It'd be probably better for them to go with one of us who is going alone as opposed to the states that have 2 people already.
Exactly.
Our people will be very interesting too.
Yeah.
So, and what we'll do, so make your phone calls now. On Monday, at the end of our time together, we'll do a check-in as well, because some of you might have some confirmed appointments by then, and we'll keep a running schedule. And then we'll check in on Tuesday afternoon as well, Wednesday afternoon, so that everybody will be set by Wednesday afternoon and ready to go on Thursday.
How much time should we leave for the meeting when we're looking at scheduling?
Often the person will say, oh, I can give you 20 minutes, or I can meet with you for half an hour. If nothing else is going on, they often will stay and give you an hour of their time. If something happens, they might cut you off after 5 minutes. Don't be offended. It's the way Capitol Hill works. It will take you a good 45 minutes to move from the House of Representatives side to the Senate side. So look at that map of Capitol Hill. Yeah, if you're walking, you can get a cab and it will be easier. I recommend leaving an hour between appointments. Or if both appointments are with senators, a half an hour is fine unless they're in the same building. Again, every time you go into a new building, you're going through security and you're walking. You'll answer that question yourself when you see it. And there's a lot of them.
My seat's interesting. Fred, I live in a swing state.
Okay.
Visit with me.
You all can lobby Fred to go with you. We'll see what good advocates you are by where you choose Fred. Any questions about that at the Capitol Hill appointment?
Would it be possible if we do struggle to get 3 appointments to try to meet with someone who does policy within an embassy? Or if we aren't in that country, would it be just kind of like pointless to meet with them doing this? Well, I'm actually interested in talking with the Mexican, someone in the Mexican embassy about.
You are welcome to try anything. I would never say no. And then we'll hear what happens. So, yeah. But, yes, Fred?
Just a question. With all that's going on right now in Europe, with all the immigration issues that we're facing and stuff, do you know if there is any institution in Washington, D.C. that I could talk to? That'd be very interesting.
There are many, Fred, and what I suggest is maybe why don't you email me with a little more information, because when you say all that's going on in Europe, I could think Europe integration of education, so Erasmus or the Bologna process, or security issues like the bombing in Belgium the other day, or migration issues, looking at Turkey or Turkey coming into the EU. There are a million ways to approach that. Let me know what you're most interested in, and then we can figure that out, okay?
Okay, I'll either call you or email you.
Great. Okay. Any other questions about the Capitol Hill visit? Okay. Josephine, any questions? Call me. Email. Good. And logistics, we're good. We're all set. Yeah? I need to see heads moving up and down or hear a yes. Yes. Okay. Good. Can I suggest before we move on and start to look at the content a little bit, shall we take a 5-minute leg stretch break and get a little air because it's warm in here, and then we'll come back and we'll start talking about advocacy and how things work in Washington? Yeah. Great. Josephine, we'll be back in a moment. Thank you. Okay. Hey, Josephine, we're back. Hope you had a good break. Fred, we're back.
Okay.
Hope you had a good break.
I did.
Great, thank you. So now, Fred, we're looking at the PowerPoint that I sent to you earlier. And Josephine, you have it as well and can see it here. I wanted to just take another 30 or 40 minutes to quickly review the structure and functions of the U.S. political system. For many of you, this might be review, but experience tells me that for many of you, the details will not be familiar, and it's time worth spent. So what we're going to do is look at who decides policy in the United States. Who do you think decides policy in the United States?
Are you talking about the actual words in the legislation?
Well,
Congress.
how do you define policy?
Laws.
Policy can be laws. It doesn't have to be.
Well, are you talking about like, what do you mean? Because like the supervisory board does policy too.
Right. So we are looking at the U.S. federal level to clarify.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So no big city stuff.
Not for the moment. as we're talking all week long, we'll ask the question, how does what we're learning apply to other situations? I'll bring in examples of, advocating me to Don or me to Ken as acting dean. I do that all the time, advocating for our programs or our students or faculty issues as well. But we can talk about the cultural transference of advocacy, recognizing that what we are talking about in the United States is a right. It's not always respected, and we will talk about that as well. But it's important to recognize when you're talking about policy, there are so many places in the world where you can advocate and the next day you're arrested and never seen from ever again. Or you advocate and your head is chopped off, or. So we want to recognize that the ability to disagree is, frankly, I think, a wonderful thing and not to be taken lightly. I, as an educated, upper middle class white woman, don't fear for my life when I'm advocating in DC. I might fear for getting arrested. That's because sometimes in a crazy situation that happens. But I feel pretty secure when I advocate. So it brings up lots of issues. All of that said, who do you think decides policy in the United States?
All three branches.
All three branches of government? We're going to explore that in a moment.
Well, I think
Stefan?
so. Do you mean create or decides?
This is a tough question, isn't it?
So usually like policies usually come from not all the time. Usually they come from the bottom of supervisory boards and things like that, and they're brought into Congress, which decides, which helps decide. And that's what I know.
Okay. Great. Hold all of that because we're going to debunk it. We're going to pull it apart. We're going to explore it. I will argue that policy is decided by us voters. And by us, I mean people who can vote. Because our elected officials, and this is the number one thing to remember, an elected official cannot serve if they are not elected. Okay? And while we know that an election can be bought, the vast majority of elections in the United States are actually not bought, but are carried out in a democratic fashion. So I am loving this year's campaign among our Democratic candidates. To watch Bernie and Hillary go at it together in all of these debates, for me, is thrilling to see. They represent in many ways, very similar perspectives. In some ways, different perspectives as well. To look at the Republican candidates go at it over the past 6 months has also been thrilling in a very different way. But I think there's been a lot of conversation about issues and how people would approach those issues, and about people's personalities as well, because that's a big part of this. So what I want to do is introduce the federal system of government. And Fred, I'm on slide number 3 right now. You can see we've got 3 branches of government. We've got 3 levels of government. Does anybody know what this structure, the system is called? Pardon? That's coming soon, but that's not this. This is the federal system of government, when you've got 3 different branches, okay? What's another system of government? In comparison to a federal system, you could have a...
State system.
No, the state is part of the federal system. If we look at states like the 50 United States.
Totalitarian system?
A totalitarian system.
Socialist?
A socialist or a communist system. The other democratic system with a small d is the parliamentary system. So many countries have a parliamentary system where the government is run by the political party in power. So, They're not necessarily exclusive, having a monarchy. So, for example, Great Britain is a monarchy, but it's a parliamentary system of government. The federal system has what we call checks and balances. The executive branch is responsible for suggesting policy, but it does not make policy most of the time. It's offering policy. The legislative branch is the branch that's charged with making policy, with voting on the laws and actually approving policy. And then the judicial branch is the branch that's charged with interpreting the policy as a case gets tried through the court system. So no one branch has all of the power, and it was deliberately set up so that each branch offers checks and balances of the other branches. What's one of the examples that we're seeing with this now?
Sorry, could you say the judicial branch legislates policies?
No, interprets policy.
Marriage equality. Immigration.
Yeah, we're missing a justice.
Say more?
So that it's not functioning because they can tie their votes right now?
Oh, no, I'm looking for something in particular. Right now, there's a question about a Supreme Court nomination, a judge nomination. So we know that the president, who is the executive at the federal level, nominates a Supreme Court justice, but he can't appoint one. That happens by a vote of the Senate specifically, okay? And he's nominating the member of the judicial branch. So the judicial branch isn't saying who is going to comprise that branch. It's nominated by the president and voted on by the legislature. So that's a great current example of how all three branches have to get along to some degree. And if they don't, what happens? Nothing. And that's really frustrating from a citizen perspective, isn't it? And it's not what government should be doing. Okay. How many... Well, who makes up the president's cabinet? You've got secretaries of all of the departments. How many departments are there? 16 right now, I believe. Department of Defense, Department of State, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Labor, Department of Health and Human Services, blah, blah, blah. About 15% of the federal government are made up of political appointees. But the most important thing to remember is that 85% of the federal government are career professionals who are not tied to their job because of their politics. And that provides a lot of continuity. Yes, policies change depending who's elected, but a lot of things remain the same as well. The people who are carrying out the programs live in the greater DC area, they commute in, they commute out. So it's really important to remember. In addition to the 16 departments, there are about 65 independent agencies that don't report to any one department. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, for example, the Agency for International Development, it is connected via a dotted line to the State Department, but it's technically not part of the State Department. So just something to keep in mind. Another thing I should note is that there are exceptions to just about everything I'm going to say. People spend their entire careers studying what we are taking 30 minutes to learn about. So just be prepared. You might hear about exceptions, and I'm not saying this is black and white. It is very gray, and lots of different shades of gray. But again, governmental scholars, have entire careers studying how this all works. So
when someone says the State Department, are they referring to the executive branch of the federal government?
They are referring to the U.S. Department of State, which is our foreign policy department, like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in another country.
And what does that fall exclusively under?
The department is part of the executive branch. All of the departments are part of the executive branch. Good question. Thank you. Does this make sense so far? So far, so good? Mm-hmm. Hey, Fred, did you ever have a U.S. government class in college?
Yeah, I did actually in university, but that was a few years back.
Just a few. Okay, good. If I'm saying something that's different from what you or anybody has heard, disagree, because this is where the good conversation happens. So, the legislative branch. Who comprises the legislative branch at the federal level? Congress. Who are we going to visit? Congress. Yes. And what is Congress comprised of?
House and Senate.
We've got our House of Representatives. How many members of the House of Representatives are there?
435.
All right. We have somebody who knows what they're talking about. That question usually stumps people, and I get numbers ranging from 150 to 500. So, how are the members of the House of Representatives designated? How do we know how many representatives represent each district?
The population of the district.
Exactly. Every 10 years there's a census. We do a study to see how many people are living in the United States. And it's about legal documented people, because if you're undocumented, you're not voting, so your person isn't counted in this.
But it's important to say that people who are documented who are not voting because they're not citizens.
Yes. So, and this is where we start to get into the gray about immigration policy. Exactly. So the Constitution says that we're going to have 435 members of Congress. Every 10 years, the census tells us how those 435 people are going to be divided up. Right now, California has like 65 members. It's not exact, but 60-some members of Congress. How many does Vermont have?
One.
How many does Wyoming have, Josephine? One, exactly. Every state gets a minimum of one. Vermont has 635,000 people in the entire state. I know. The county that I lived in Maryland, now has close to 2 million people. Okay? Huge differences in population, and this is why demographics are so important. Each member of Congress represents approximately 725,000 people, but there are 7 or 8 states that only have one member of Congress. Wyoming, Vermont, North Dakota, South Dakota, Idaho,
Montana.
Alaska, Montana. Rhode Island used to have one. New Hampshire used to have one and now has 2. And why is that?
Population.
One word, Boston. The Boston suburbs are exploding into southern New Hampshire. So you've got the state of New Hampshire. One district is this corner, and the rest of the state is the second district, because that's how the population falls.
Did you say about 735,000?
About 735,000. So that's the House. How many senators are there on the other side of Congress? There are 100 senators, 2 per state. Doesn't matter how big your state is or how little. Vermont has the same power in the Senate that California has. And clearly this was designed so there would be a balance. Population is more important for the House of Representatives, but the fact that we're a state is more important in the Senate. In the Senate, senators serve for how many years? 6 years. How many years do congressmen serve for? 2. Congressmen are incredibly accountable to their electorate because they have to stand for election every 2 years. Every 2 years, the entire House of Representatives is up for re-election or election. Members of the Senate are in for 6 years. So every 2 years, 1/3 of the Senate is standing for re-election. So there's a rotation. And the idea is that you've got accountability on one side, and you've got, if I say durability on the other, it means that senators don't have to respond to the issue of the moment. It's called the deliberative body. They can take their time, and they do. They take a lot longer to make policy because they can. So you've got depth and breadth kind of balanced against each other. Now on the Moodle site, there's a document, and I'm going to come to it in a little bit as well in the PowerPoint, how a bill becomes a law. The important thing to note is that both the House and the Senate, the offices have staff. And the staff are professionals, people who have master's degrees, doctorates in public policy, in science, in labor, in economics, in whatever the issue is that they are responsible for. They are the people that we really want to meet with talking about immigration policy and public policy, because they're the people who are advising the member of Congress how to vote. But it's very easy to say, God, that Paul Rand, he didn't even read that bill before he voted on it. Well, most people don't realize that the bill is 400 pages, and he probably received it in its final way the night before he's voting on it. And I could say the same thing about Patrick Leahy, who I love and adore. There's so much going on that these people are responsible for. In one day, they could be voting on immigration, on nuclear policy, on education funding for kindergarten programs, on environmental issues, on going to war with Iraq. And how do you be expert on all of those things? It's impossible. So something to keep in mind. Okay. The judicial branch at the federal level starts with the Supreme Court. I used to yell at my brother when I was little, I'm going to take you all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has 9 justices, but underneath the Supreme Court are 11 appellate courts. So the United States is broken into 11 regions. They're called districts. And the appeals process really works. A case might start in a local or a state court. It moves its way through the appellate process. Very few cases ever get sent to the Supreme Court, and the court actually hears even fewer. I mean, there are tens of thousands of cases that are processed every year, and I think the Supreme Court actually hears something like 130, 150.
That's still a lot for how many people in the Supreme Court?
9.
9 people.
But some can abstain.
And now there are 8, of course. They're all doing this. They're all doing work because they're all voting on all of the issues. It's not like they divide them up, the cases. So.
But since there is 8, one will have to abstain, right?
Nope.
No? I thought they couldn't come. I thought they had to be an imbalance for.
Nope.
No.
Nope. Okay. Federal courts, we talked about. Okay, the executive branch at the state level is the governor. It's, the legislative branch at the state level
Congress
is going to be a state assembly of some sort. And Fred, as you can tell, are just kind of clicking through the PowerPoint.
No kidding.
Is this making sense?
Yes.
Great. 49 out of 50 states have state assemblies that are set up like the U.S. Congress with 2 houses. The names might be different, but often one is about a district and one is about population. Nebraska is the only state that has just 1 house. It's a unicameral assembly. I don't know why, but it's just interesting. The judicial branch at the state level, the state court system, executive. I'm not focusing so much on the judiciary right now because we're more interested in how policy is suggested by the executive branch and how it's implemented at the federal executive level. And we're really focusing on advocacy, which is about the legislative branch. So. But I want to note the executive at the local level is a mayor or a county executive. Keep in mind the United States has about 5,000 local jurisdictions, cities, towns, villages. Every state, yeah, 5,000. Pardon?
Only 5,000?
Oh, so that doesn't seem like a lot to you.
Are you talking about like counties or like municipalities?
Municipalities, but in some states, the county has the same function as a municipality. So the key to remember is that when you're working as an advocate, you want to spend some time researching what the structure is. When we talk about advocacy for education policy, we talk about the need to know how that local level is structured. And when we look at this in my IE policy class, we look at educational policy. If you want to place an exchange student in a high school, do you ask the principal of the school? If it's an independent school, is it the headmaster? Maybe it's the PTA. Maybe it's the teachers, the faculty. There are a million different answers, so you just need to know what questions to ask. Okay? The legislative branch at the local level might be a city council or a county council. So I grew up in Maryland, where you had Baltimore City and 23 counties, but each county functions just like a city. So we have the Baltimore County Council, which was the legislature at the local level. The judicial branch, you'll have local court system. Local courts are going to be focused on things like traffic, zoning issues is incredibly political, but local level. Possession of small amounts of drugs, perhaps. The moment you get into drug trafficking or drug transportation across state lines, you're moving into state court and federal court. And then the state courts can serve as the appellate court, where an appeals case would be heard for local courts, and the federal courts for state courts. So issues move up the court system. Okay. We're going to look next week at what this column consists of, and really we're looking, and this column being the international policy column, Fred, we're really going to be filling in the box about what international immigration policy at the federal level looks like. What is the president proposing? What are the president's departments implementing? What is the legislative branch considering, and how does it work? And we'll look a little bit at the judiciary as well and what that means. So, any questions? It's a ton of information, but I just want to see if you have any questions to get started. Fred, any questions?
No, I think it's generally pretty.
All right. Okay for me,
Thank
Mark?
you.
Just a couple more things I want to share. It'll make next week a lot easier. Budget. Laws can be considered by Congress at any time of the year, but the budget, specifically funding for policies, for programs, specifically starts in January when the President gives his State of the Union address. What he's doing is laying out his budget priorities for the coming year. He's not laying out exactly what's going to happen because it needs to be voted on by whom? Congress. Thank you, by Congress. So about 12 or 15 years ago, the first President Bush, in his State of the Union address, talked about giving amnesty to undocumented workers who were employed and had jobs because they were contributing to the economy. And he talked about the need for workers and management to talk together to figure out how this was going to happen. An employer could not be held liable for employing, at that time, they could not be held liable for employing an undocumented worker if they weren't aware of the person's status. So many employers at that time didn't ask about status. After the State of the Union address, many undocumented workers went to their bosses and said, guess what? I am undocumented now, but Bush said last night in the State of the Union that he's going to develop a program so you can hire me legally. Oh my goodness. Not realizing that that was the proposal, not a change in law, those people then endangered their jobs because their employers had to fire them because they then knew that they were undocumented. So a lot of people think that whatever the president says he's going to do is what he's going to do. And now, in the electoral debates and speeches that are given, people say, what are you going to do when you're president? And this is why, and I'm speaking very personally and individually right now, this is why Trump cracks me up. When I'm president, I'm gonna... Okay, did he take my government 101 class? Apparently not. Or he would know. He just can't change every single law his first day in office. It doesn't work like that. He can propose the policy, but the Congress has to vote on the laws. It's really basic, and he doesn't seem to get that. However, even Bernie and Hillary talk like they get it as well, because they all talk about what they're going to do. What they can do is propose the policy and collaborate with Congress. They cannot change policy by themselves. Now you might be thinking, but wait, every so often a president establishes something like the formal title is going to escape me for a moment, when Obama passed the policy so that undocumented undocumented workers and the the dreamers could go to school, could serve in the military, were eligible to apply for financial aid, and he just established that policy. He passed a presidential decree. However, a president cannot do that very frequently because they will lose all goodwill, not only with members of the opposite political party, but with members of their own political party. I mean, Obama and Senator Leahy from Vermont, they're really good friends. They see things the same way. They're both super progressive Democrats. But if Obama uses executive action, that's the term I was looking for, if he passes executive orders too frequently, even his bud, Patrick Leahy, is going to say, yo, Barack, that's my job. It's not your job to pass a law. You can do it once, maybe twice, but you've got to stop it because that's not the president's job. That's where constitutional scholarship comes in. What's the role of each of these branches? It gets really interesting there. So, okay, back to the budget. February, September, budget negotiations. The budget proposal that the president offers is processed through both houses of Congress. They tear it apart, they put it back together, they try to come to an agreement. They have to send the same exact version, they have to come to agreement, same exact wording, before a budget can then go to the president for his approval. Let me show you a diagram. And Fred, I'm on the slide titled Flowchart for a Bill Becoming a Law.
Okay, 13.
Thank you. You can see the bill is introduced in the House. It goes through the committee process. It's considered by the committee. It's voted on by the full House. Same thing on the Senate side. The bill is introduced in the Senate. It's processed through the committee process. It's voted on by the full Senate. If the bill is voted on by both the House and the Senate, it goes into conference where they iron out the differences on either side. Governance is all about compromise, and a lot of people don't realize this. It's not just pushing your agenda through, because that will never happen. You're constantly having to compromise with people in your party, from the other party, who you agree with, who you disagree with. After the conference, one bill is settled upon. It goes to the president, who either signs it or vetoes it. What happens if the president vetoes legislation? It goes back to the Senate, where 2/3 of the Senate has to vote on it to override the presidential veto. It doesn't happen frequently, but it does happen every so often. So you're going to hear next week when we're talking with people, they're going to be talking about previous fights over immigration policy. They're going to talk about comprehensive immigration reform and how it failed in this process. They're going to be talking about the President's executive order regarding DACA, deferred action for the Dreamers, people who were brought to the States as children by their parents. They had no power over their status. Now they are grown, high school, college. They want to serve in the military. They want to go to college and get financial aid. They want a social security number to work legally. So we're going to be talking about all of that.
It's deferred action for childhood arrivals, if anybody wants to look it up.
Thank you. And there also is a parallel program for parents, deferred action for parental, I'm not sure what the A stands for. So there's two parallel programs. Any questions about how a bill becomes a law? Okay. The key for us is recognizing how do we get involved. Oh, Noah, thank you.
That's going to be on Moodle?
Yes. Yes, I'll put the PowerPoint. Sorry. This chart is on Moodle already. There's a document called How a Bill Becomes a Law. It's not exactly the same version, but it says the same thing. And I'll put this PowerPoint on Moodle as soon as we're done as well. Good. So the question we're looking at next week is, how do we get involved? How do we make our voice heard? When we think about this process, when bills are being introduced and reviewed by committee, this is where advocacy happens. This is where our voices can be heard. When Congress is considering new legislation, when Congress is debating policy, they are looking to experts like us, and they're looking to their constituents to hear, what do you think? What do you know? What can you tell me about this issue? How should I vote? And they want to hear from us so they can make the most educated decisions. An interesting question to ask of a member of Congress is, do you vote according to what you believe, or do you vote according to what your constituents believe? Because they're not always the same thing. And that, frankly, is one of the core fundamental questions about political process in a democratic society. It can be argued a million different ways. We'll talk about that next week as well. So, just to give you a quick view, we're on the very last slide, Fred. And here we can see Capitol Hill, the whole neighborhood. We are looking exactly east, and just beyond the Capitol building, which is in the center, is the Supreme Court and the Library of Congress. On the left side are Senate office buildings, and on the right side are House office buildings. The Washington Monument is behind us in this photograph, and we'll be there this time next week. That's going to be you going to your appointments, running around the hill. So let me stop there and see if you have any other questions. Do you feel ready for next week? Or even better, do you feel like you will be ready on Monday, if you're not ready today? Fred, any final questions?
I don't think so. I think I'm fine.
When are you flying?
On Sunday, actually.
Great, so you'll land in D.C. on Sunday?
Sunday afternoon. So I'll be jet lagged on Monday afternoon, but apart from that, I'll be fine the rest of the week.
Great, great. If you have any questions, just give me a call. Like I said, my cell phone number will be on the first page of the syllabus, which will be posted by the end of the day tomorrow, so that you'll all have access to it. If you call my cell phone at any funky times after next week, my husband might answer and grouse at you. So this is for this coming week only. Any questions from anybody in the room? If you think of anything, email me, call, let me know. I will let you know when everything is posted to the Moodle site at the end of the day. And otherwise, we will see each other Monday morning, dressed professionally, looking spiffy, ready to go and learn about immigration policy. Yay. Great. Fred, thank you. I know it's late for you, so we appreciate you calling in. Josephine, thank you.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you on Monday.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you.